The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and grief, a combination I'd become intimately familiar with over the past 3 months. My hands trembled as I pressed the elevator button for the 4th floor, rehearsing in my mind what I would say to the man who had destroyed my marriage of 38 years. At 68 years old, I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me. I was wrong. It started 6 months ago when Margaret began staying late at the office more frequently. Margaret, my wife of nearly 4 decades, the woman who'd raised our 3 children, who'd stood beside me through my father's death and my mother's dementia, who knew every scar on my body and every fear in my heart. She'd taken a job 2 years prior at a marketing firm downtown, said she needed something for herself now that the kids were grown. I'd supported her completely, proud even, that at 65 she wanted to continue growing and contributing. The signs were obvious in retrospect. The new clothes, the sudden interest in going to the gym, the way she'd angle her phone away when texting, the perfume I didn't recognize. But when you've been with someone for 38 years, when you've built a life and raised children and buried parents together, you don't expect betrayal, you trust. God help me, I trusted completely. I discovered the affair the way these things are always discovered, by accident, in the most mundane way possible. Margaret had left her laptop open on the kitchen table while she showered. A message notification popped up on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I need you." The sender was listed simply as Deed. My stomach dropped before my brain could catch up. I clicked on the conversation thread and read 3 months of messages that detailed an intimacy that went far beyond physical. They shared inside jokes. They talked about dreams and fears. They said, "I love you." The confrontation that night was brutal. Margaret didn't deny it. She cried, said she never meant for it to happen, said she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. She said Derek made her feel seen. Derek. Even his name felt like a punch to the gut. I asked how old he was. 42, younger than our oldest son. I asked where they met. At the gym, of course, where she'd been working on herself. "Do you love him?" I asked. My voice sounding strange and far away. She'd looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I don't know. Maybe. I am so confused, Harold. I am so sorry." Sorry 30. 8 years reduced to sorry. Our children took it hard. Jennifer, our oldest at 37, stopped speaking to her mother for weeks. Marcus, 34, tried to play peacemaker, suggesting counseling and time. Amy, our youngest at 31, was furious with both of us, angry at her mother for the betrayal, angry at me for what she perceived as years of emotional unavailability that might have driven Margaret to this. Maybe she wasn't wrong. Margaret moved out a month after the confrontation. She rented a small apartment across town, said she needed space to think. The house felt enormous and empty without her. 42 years we'd lived there, raised our family there, celebrated and mourned there. Now it was just me and the ghosts of better days, rattling around rooms that no longer felt like home. I learned through Jennifer, who'd extracted the information from her mother during a heated argument, that Derek was going through a divorce himself, that he and Margaret had bonded over feeling trapped in their respective lives, that he made her feel young and passionate and free. I tried to hate him. This man I'd never met, this Derek who was destroying my life. Mostly, I just felt old and tired and confused about how we'd gotten here. The phone call came at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, 3 months after Margaret had moved out. It was Marcus. "Dad, you need to get to Mercy Hospital. Mom's there. There has been an accident." My heart seized. "Is she okay?" "She is fine, Dad. Shaken up but fine. It is Derek." They were driving back from dinner, and a truck ran a red light, boned them on the passenger side. Mom has some bruising from the airbag. But Derek. "It is bad, Dad. Really bad." I should have felt something dark and satisfying, some sense of cosmic justice. Instead, I just felt sick. I threw on clothes and drove to the hospital, my mind a chaos of conflicting emotions. When I got there, Margaret was in the emergency room, wrapped in a blanket, Mascara streaked down her face. She looked small and broken and terrified. "Harold," she said when she saw me, her voice cracking. "Oh God, Harold." Our children were already there, clustered around their mother protectively. Amy was holding her hand. I stood apart, unsure of my role in this tableau. "How is he?" I asked, the question feeling strange in my mouth. "Critical," Marcus said quietly. "Multiple internal injuries, fractured skull, broken ribs. They're not sure if he'll make it through the night." Margaret let out a sob, and Jennifer held her tighter. I watched my wife cry for another man and felt something inside me crack further. Some foundation I didn't know was still holding finally giving way. Over the next few weeks, Derek stabilized, but remained in serious condition. He'd had 3 surgeries. There was brain swelling, kidney damage, a long road ahead even if he survived. Margaret was at the hospital constantly. She'd taken a leave from work. Our children took turns supporting her while simultaneously checking in on me. These young adults suddenly forced to parent their parents through an impossible situation. I stayed away from the hospital. What would be the point? What could I possibly say or do? But as weeks turned into months, as Derek remained in critical condition, transferred eventually out of ICU, but still severely injured, still facing an uncertain future, something began to shift in me. I kept thinking about something Amy had said during one of her visits to check on me. "Dad, rage is easier than grief, but grief is what actually heals us." She was in therapy, had been for years, and had a way of cutting through to uncomfortable truths. I was enraged at Margaret, at Derek, at the universe for this cosmic joke. But underneath the rage was grief so profound I could barely breathe around it. Grief for my marriage, for the woman I thought I knew, for the life I'd believed we'd live out together. And as much as I wanted to demonize Derek, as much as I wanted him to be the villain in this story, the truth was more complicated. He was a human being lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. Margaret loved him, or thought she did, and watching him suffer was destroying her. Our children were caught in the middle, trying to support their mother while not betraying their father. Everyone was in pain, everyone was suffering, and my staying away, my refusing to engage, wasn't protecting me. It was keeping me trapped in a story where I was only a victim. I called Jennifer one evening, 4 months after the accident. "I want to visit him," I said without preamble. Silence on the other end. Then, "Dad, are you sure?" "Number, but I need to do it anyway." "Does Mom know?" "Number and don't tell her. This is something I need to do for myself, not for her." Which is how I found myself in the hospital elevator that Tuesday afternoon, heart pounding, palms sweating, feeling every one of my 68 years. The nurse at the 4th floor station gave me the room number without question. Visiting hours were liberal for patients in Derek's condition. I walked down the corridor, counting door numbers. My bag, containing I don't even remember what. Magazines, maybe, fruit, the things you bring to hospitals. Growing heavier with each step. Room 437. I stood outside the door for a full minute, maybe longer, trying to gather courage I wasn't sure I possessed. What was I doing here? What did I hope to accomplish? I didn't have answers. I just knew I couldn't move forward without seeing him, without looking into the eyes of the man who'd become the focal point of my pain. I pushed open the door and dropped my bag. The man in the hospital bed wasn't what I'd expected. I'd built up this image of Derek in my mind over the months. Tall, athletic, movie, star, handsome. Everything. I wasn't. The reality was brutally different. He was small, much smaller than me, frail, looking even accounting for the injuries. His face, visible despite the bandages and medical equipment, was ordinary, plain even. But none of that was why I dropped my bag. Sitting beside his bed, holding his hand, was a teenage boy. Maybe 16 or 17. He had Derek's nose, his jawline. The boy looked up when I entered, eyes red from crying, face exhausted. "Are you another doctor?" the boy asked, his voice rough with fatigue. I couldn't speak. I just stood there frozen. The boy wiped his eyes. "Sorry," I thought. We're not supposed to have visitors except family, but they've been flexible. I am Tyler, Derek's son. Derek had a son, a teenage son who'd been sitting vigil at his father's bedside, whose face showed the same devastation I'd seen on my own children's faces during hard times. I started, then stopped. What was I? I am Harold. Tyler's eyes widened. Harold? Margaret's. Oh. Understanding dawned, and with it, discomfort. I should probably go. I don't know if Dad would want. Please, I said, finding my voice. Don't leave on my account. I am the intruder here. Tyler looked torn, but he also looked desperate for connection, for someone to share his vigil. He is not awake much, he said finally. When he is pretty out of it from the pain meds, but the doctors say he can probably hear us, that it helps to talk to him. I moved closer to the bed, looking at Derek properly for the first time. The machines beeped steadily. His chest rose and fell with mechanical assistance. He looked vulnerable in a way that made him human, in a way my imagination never had. How old are you, Tyler? I asked, lowering myself into the other chair in the room. 17, senior year, he laughed bitterly. Supposed to be applying to colleges, but instead I am here. Your mother, she left when I was 8, moved to California with her new husband, sends birthday cards and money sometimes, but Dad's really all I've got. His voice cracked. I can't lose him. I just can't. The rage I'd carried for months began to crumble. This boy, this child, was facing the possible loss of his only parent, and I'd been so consumed with my own pain that I'd never considered Derek as a full person with his own history, his own wounds, his own people who loved him. Tell me about him, I said quietly. About your dad, Tyler looked surprised. Why? Because I need to understand. Because I've spent months hating a person I never met, and maybe that is not fair to anyone, including me. So Tyler talked. He told me about Derek raising him alone after his mother left, working 2 jobs to keep them afloat. He told me about his dad coaching his little league team, despite knowing nothing about baseball, about helping with homework even when he was exhausted, about never missing a school event even when work made it nearly impossible. He told me about his dad's divorce, how it had devastated him, how he'd felt like a failure. He was really sad for a long time, Tyler said. Like scary sad. I was worried about him. Then he met Margaret at the gym, and I saw him smile again. Really smile, you know. She made him happy. She made him remember how to laugh. Each word was a small knife, but I deserved them. I listened because Tyler needed to talk, and because I needed to hear. I know what they did was wrong, Tyler continued, looking at me directly. I know she was married to you, Dad told me. He felt terrible about it. They both did. But they really love each other, Mr. Harold. I know that doesn't make it right, but it is true. We sat in silence for a while, these two people connected through pain and circumstance. Derek stirred slightly, moaned. Tyler was up immediately, adjusting pillows, checking monitors with practiced ease. You've been here a lot, I observed. Every day after school, weekends, all day. My aunt comes sometimes, Dad's sister, but mostly it is me and Margaret. He hesitated. She is really nice, Margaret. She talks to me like I matter. She brings me food, helps me keep up with schoolwork. She is good to my dad. She sits here and reads to him, holds his hand, tells him about her day. She loves him, really loves him. The door opened, and a nurse came in to check vitals. She smiled at Tyler with the familiarity of routine, then looked at me with curiosity but said nothing. After she left, Tyler turned back to me. Why did you come here? He asked. If you hate my dad, why come? I don't know if I hate him, I said honestly. I thought I did. I wanted to. But hate takes so much energy, and I am tired. Tyler, I am just so tired of being angry and hurt. I came here thinking, I don't know what I thought, that seeing him would give me closure, that I could tell him off, make myself feel better. I shook my head. But seeing you here, hearing about his life, it is not that simple. Do you still love her, Margaret? The question hit me hard. I love who she was to me for 38 years. I love the life we built, the children we raised, the memories we made. But do I love who she is now, the person who could do this? I don't know. Maybe you can love someone and still need to let them go. Derek's eyes fluttered open. He looked confused, trying to focus. His gaze went to Tyler first, and I saw relief in those eyes. Love. Then he saw me. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by confusion, then something like fear. "Harold," he rasped, his voice barely audible through the oxygen mask. "Dad, don't try to talk," Tyler said, leaning forward. "Save your strength." But Derek was looking at me, trying to form words. I stood and moved closer to the bed, close enough to hear him whisper. "Sorry. So, sorry." 2 words, the same 2 words Margaret had given me. But coming from this broken man, from someone fighting for his life, they carried different weight. "I know," I said, and realized I meant it. "I know you are." I stayed for another hour. We didn't talk much more. Derek drifted in and out, and when he was awake, the pain medications made communication difficult. But I sat there with Tyler, this boy who'd had his life turned upside down by circumstances beyond his control, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, not exactly, but something like understanding. When I finally left, Tyler walked me to the elevator. "Mr. Harold," he said as I was about to step inside, "thank you for coming, for staying, for not being mean to him. Take care of your dad, Tyler, and take care of yourself. Will you come back?" The question surprised me. "Would you want me to?" "I think," he paused, searching for words. "I think Dad needs to know you don't hate him. I think it might help him heal. And I think maybe you need it too." From the mouths of babes, even 17-year-old babes. I did go back, not every day, but a few times a week. Sometimes Margaret was there, and those visits were awkward and painful but civil. She never asked why I was coming, and I never explained. Sometimes it was just Tyler and me, and he'd tell me about college applications and senior year stress, and I'd listen and offer the kind of advice I used to give my own kids. Slowly, as Derek improved, as he became more lucid, we began to talk. Short conversations at first, surface-level things. But gradually deeper. He told me about his divorce, about feeling like he'd failed at the most important thing in his life, about meeting Margaret and feeling like he'd been given a second chance at happiness, about the guilt that ate at him constantly, knowing he was contributing to my pain. "I didn't set out to fall in love with a married woman," he said one afternoon when we were alone. "I am not that guy, at least I didn't think I was." "None of us think we're that guy," I replied. "Until circumstances prove otherwise. Life is messier than we prepare for." "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" he asked. "I think I am working toward forgiving everyone, including myself. I wasn't a perfect husband, Derek. I was distant sometimes, too focused on work, took her for granted in ways I am only now recognizing. That doesn't excuse what happened, but it does complicate the story. She talks about you, you know. She talks about your life together, your kids, memories. She doesn't hate you. She is not trying to erase what you had. I know. That might be harder. Actually, if she hated me, I could make her the villain. But she is just a person who made choices, some good, some bad. We all are." Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. Derek recovered, slowly, painfully, with setbacks and complications. But he recovered. He was transferred to a rehabilitation facility. Tyler visited constantly, Margaret visited constantly, and occasionally I visited too. Our children struggled with my choice to visit Derek. Jennifer thought I was being a doormat. Marcus worried I was hurting myself. But Amy understood. "You are doing what you need to do for your own healing," she said. "That is actually really healthy, Dad." One evening, about 7 months after the accident, Derek was well enough to sit in a wheelchair in the facility's courtyard. I found him there, Tyler beside him, both watching the sunset. Tyler saw me first and smiled, waving me over. "Tyler's been accepted to Northwestern," Derek said, his voice still weaker than before the accident, but stronger every week. "Full scholarship. That is incredible, Tyler. Congratulations." The boy beamed with pride and relief. "It was my first choice. I thought I'd have to defer a year because of Dad, but the scholarship has medical deferment options, and Dad's doctors think he'll be well enough by fall for me to go." "You are not deferring anything," Derek said firmly. You are going in the fall like planned. My sister can help if I need it, but I'll be okay. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, three unlikely companions watching the day end. Harold, Derek said eventually, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you keep coming? After that first day, why didn't you just walk away?" I thought about Tyler's tear, stained face, that first day, about this broken man in a hospital bed, about Margaret's anguish, about my own exhaustion with carrying rage. "Because hate was making me smaller," I said finally. "Because I realized that you weren't the enemy. You were just another person trying to figure out how to be happy, making mistakes along the way like we all do. Because Tyler needed support, and I had some to give. Because maybe forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened, but about refusing to let what happened define the rest of my life." "Are you and Margaret?" Derek started. "No," I said firmly but gently. "The chapter is closed. The divorce was finalized last month. We're working toward being civil, maybe eventually friends, for our children's sake. But we're not going back. She loves you, you know, in her way." "I know. And I loved her. Love her still, probably in my way. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people grow in different directions, need different things. I am learning to be okay with that." Tyler's phone buzzed. He checked it and groaned. "I have to go. Study group for calculus. Dad, you good? I am good, son. Go learn something." After Tyler left, Derek and I sat together in the growing darkness. "I don't expect forgiveness," Derek said quietly. "I don't deserve it. Maybe none of us deserve forgiveness. Maybe that is what makes it meaningful." "Are you happy, Harold, or at least, are you finding your way toward happy?" The question made me pause and take real inventory. "I am finding peace," I said. "I am learning to live alone without being lonely. I am rebuilding relationships with my children. I am figuring out who I am outside of being Margaret's husband. Is it the life I planned? But maybe it is the life I needed." Derek nodded slowly. "Thank you for not hating my son because of what I did. Tyler's a good kid. You did well with him. That is something to be proud of." We talked until the courtyard lights came on and a nurse came to take Derek back to his room. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in months. This strange, painful journey had taught me that healing isn't linear and forgiveness isn't surrender. That people are complicated and situations are messy, and sometimes there are no villains, just imperfect humans colliding in imperfect ways. Margaret and Derek are still together. They moved in together after Derek was released from rehabilitation. Our children have slowly, grudgingly accepted it, though Thanksgiving remains complicated. Tyler started Northwestern this fall, and I sent him a care package which made Derek cry, according to Margaret. Margaret and I meet occasionally for coffee, carefully navigating a new relationship built on shared history and mutual respect. It is strange and sometimes painful, but also necessary. We created 3 humans together. We'll always be connected. I've started dating again, tentatively, which terrifies and excites me. I joined a book club. I volunteer at a senior center, teaching woodworking. I am building a life that is mine, defined by my choices rather than my losses. When people ask about my ex-wife's affair, about visiting her lover in the hospital, they expect a simple story: betrayal, revenge, bitterness. But life has taught me that the most profound stories resist simple telling. Sometimes the people who hurt us are also suffering. Sometimes forgiveness benefits the forgiver more than the forgiven. Sometimes you have to walk into the room you've been avoiding, drop your bag and see what is really there rather than what you've imagined. I am 69 now. The man I was at 67, learning about the affair, wouldn't recognize the man I've become. That man thought betrayal was the end of his story. This man knows it was just a painful chapter in a much longer, richer narrative. And some days when I am feeling particularly philosophical, I am grateful, not for the pain, never that, but for what the pain revealed, about Margaret, about myself, about what really matters. Sometimes we have to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we actually need. The door to room 437 changed my life, just not in the way I expected. I walked in planning confrontation, and walked out with the beginnings of peace. That is grace, I suppose. Finding humanity in the least expected places, even in the eyes of the man who loved your wife.